Get ready, because what scientists have just discovered completely overturns everything we thought we knew about Comet 3I Atlas. We have a huge, perhaps the most important update on the main interstellar visitor to our solar system in recent years. Just recently, observatories obtained the first clear images of the object after it made its deadly flyby near the Sun. And what they saw in these images, or more precisely, what they did not see, shocked the entire scientific community. And this is where things get even more interesting. The China National Space Administration has just released its own image of 3I Atlas, taken from a uniquely close distance. This new data adds fuel to the fire and is causing a storm of controversy among researchers because it is one of the closest observations of an interstellar comet by a space probe in history. In today's video, we'll break it all down for you. What did these new images actually show? What shocking data did the Chinese team uncover? And why did these discoveries lead scientists to declare all existing models a complete failure? But most importantly, we will discuss in detail the new data from the surface of this object, which is prompting researchers to ask one very important and alarming question. Is 3I Atlas simply a very strange natural comet from another star system? Or could we be dealing with something completely different? This photograph was taken on November 5th, 2025, by the Raves Observatory. At first glance, it is simply a blurry ball of light, floating in the void. The direction of the Sun is in the lower left corner. But that's not what caught the attention of scientists. What is truly striking here is that the new image shows a compact, concentrated light source, but there is no clear comet tail visible at all. Usually when comets pass so close to the Sun, they display a long glowing tail of dust and gas. But in 3I Atlas, it seems to be completely absent. But what is even stranger is the coma. That is, the cloud of gas and dust that surrounds the comet's nucleus. It looks almost identical to what we saw months earlier in the Hubble Space Telescope image from July 2010. In other words, it seems that almost nothing has changed with the object even after its closest approach to the Sun. And this is precisely what left scientists completely stunned, because they expected to see a completely different picture. And here's why. When 3I Atlas passed very close to the Sun, it suddenly began to behave extremely strangely. It became brighter than ever before, reaching a magnitude of about 9, which completely disrupted all previous predictions. This sudden burst of brightness made scientists wonder what was really going on there. To make matters even more mysterious, researchers confirmed that 3I Atlas showed a small, but noticeable, non-gravitational acceleration. This means that the object accelerated in a way that gravity alone could not explain. Something pushed him, but scientists still do not fully understand what caused this extra impulse. Harvard astronomer Professor Avi Loeb has proposed one possible explanation. He said that 3I Atlas may have lost a measurable fraction of its mass, probably due to material ejection from its surface. This could create something like a rocket effect, where gases escaping in one direction push the object in the opposite direction. According to his calculations, if 3I Atlas is indeed a natural comet, it should have lost about 13% of its total mass near perihelion. And so, based on this idea, Loeb made an interesting prediction. He said that when we look at 3I Atlas, after it emerges from behind the Sun, which should happen within a week or two, if it is a natural comet, we should see a very bright, massive cloud of gas, and possibly even an extremely bright comet tail around it. If we don't see it, the question arises, what pushed him? But when scientists finally looked at the image after perihelion, they did not see this large cloud at all. In fact, 3I Atlas looked almost the same as it did before its approach to the Sun. There was no visible tail, no dense gas cloud, nothing that would indicate signs of massive material loss. And now, the main question arises. If 3I Atlas really lost so much mass near the Sun, where did all that material go? And if it didn't lose much mass, what caused that strange acceleration and sudden brightness? And there's another twist. Scientists noticed that 3I Atlas changed its color for the third time. Now it emits a bluish glow around itself, which is very unusual. All these new findings, the missing tail, the unchanged coma, the inexplicable acceleration, and the color change, make 3I Atlas one of the most mysterious interstellar objects ever observed. Ordinary comets in the solar system have beautiful tails pointing away from the sun. Comet Lemon is a perfect example of this, but in our case, 3I Atlas looks like a blurry ball of light, even after it passed through perihelion, where it was heated with a power of 770 watts per square meter. Professor Avi Loeb explained that if future observations from the James Webb Space Telescope, which are expected in the coming days, also confirm that 3I Atlas does not have enough gas around it to explain the strange non-gravitational acceleration, then scientists may have to look for explanations beyond natural causes. And that brings us to the heart of this incredible mystery. We are faced with a fundamental paradox. The engine that propelled the object was running, but we see no traces of its exhaust. It's like watching a race car silently take off, leaving no smoke or tire marks behind. Something is fundamentally wrong here. So, we have an object that pushes something, and if it's not magic, then what could it be? Astronomers have a standard, time-tested explanation for this behavior, and it is called the rocket effect. Let's quickly figure out how it works. Because it was this seemingly simple idea that became the trigger that led to the most shocking failure of prediction in modern astronomy. Imagine a comet as a giant, dirty snowball. It is a mixture of ice, dust, and frozen gases. When he flies through the icy void, he is firm and calm. But as soon as it gets close to the sun, the real show begins. The sun's heat strikes its surface and causes the ice to instantly turn into gas, bursting into space in powerful jets. Now recall how a rocket operates. It forcefully expels gas in one direction, and this pushes it in the opposite direction. The same thing happens with comets. These escaping jets act like dozens of small, natural rocket engines pushing a multi-ton core. It's simple, it's elegant, and it explains the acceleration of hundreds of comets that we have observed before. It would seem that this is the answer. 3I Atlas is simply a very active comet that has turned on its natural engines. The problem is solved, you may leave, but that was not the case. Because when scientists took this simple and understandable model and plugged in the real numbers obtained from 3I Atlas, the result turned out to be anything but simple. He turned out to be incredible. And it is from this moment that our story transforms from a routine scientific task into a genuine detective thriller, where each new clue only makes the picture stranger. And here the story takes a sharp turn. It's one thing to say that a comet is propelled by gas. It is quite another matter to calculate exactly how many billions of tons of gas are needed for this. This work was done by Professor Avi Loeb and his team at Harvard. They took the precise acceleration value from 3I Atlas and asked the models a single question. How much material would have to evaporate from the surface to produce such a powerful thrust? When they received the answer, it shocked everyone. It was not a minor discrepancy. It was a real bombshell. To explain this acceleration, 3I Atlas would have had to lose 13% of its total mass. Let's pause for a second. 13%. Ordinary comets lose fractions of a percent per pass, and here, more than 1/10 of the entire object. This is no longer just evaporation. This is an act of cosmic self-destruction. To give you an idea of the scale of the disaster, with a weight of 33 billion tons, 13% is more than 4 billion tons of material. This is the total weight of all cars on planet Earth. All this material, ice, dust, rocks, had to be scraped off the surface and thrown into space in just a few weeks. Such a huge loss of weight could not go unnoticed. You can't just throw 4 billion tons of trash into space and hope that no one will see it. This event was bound to leave behind a huge, dazzling, completely obvious mark. The model ceased to be just a theory. It turned into a concrete, physical prediction. She painted a picture of a grand cosmic spectacle that we simply had to see, and the entire scientific world held its breath in anticipation. So what was this cosmic apocalypse supposed to look like? What exactly did the model, based on a 13% loss of mass, predict? It was not insignificant. The forecast was clear. After flying past the Sun, 3I Atlas was expected to become one of the brightest and most impressive objects in the night sky. First, its coma, the cloud of gas and dust surrounding the nucleus, had to swell to enormous proportions. We are talking about a diameter of hundreds of thousands of kilometers. To give you an idea, this cloud would have had to be larger than Jupiter, the largest planet in our solar system. Secondly, this enormous volume of matter should have formed an incredibly bright and long tail, even two tails, a wide, curved dust tail, and a straight, narrow ion tail, glowing blue. They must have stretched for millions of kilometers, creating a stunning sight in the sky. And thirdly, the overall brightness of the object should have increased tenfold, or possibly even 100-fold. This would mean that 3I Atlas would become easily observable even with amateur telescopes around the world. It was supposed to be the main astronomical event of the year. The moment of truth was set. This was a decisive test for the natural comet theory. If the prediction had come true, the mystery would have been solved. Yes, it was just an incredibly active comet. But if it had failed, it would have meant that we had encountered something that did not fit into our knowledge of space. All of the world's largest observatories, all of the most powerful telescopes, including Hubble and James Webb, were aimed at the point in space where our guest was supposed to reappear. Astronomers, both professional and amateur, held their breath. The script was written. All that remained was to wait for the curtain to rise. The curtain rose, and there was nothing on stage, nothing at all. The first images that came from the observatories after 3I Atlas emerged from behind the Sun caused more than just surprise. They caused shock and bewilderment. Where everyone expected to see a dazzling, gigantic cloud of light, telescopes showed only a dim, solitary point. It was compact. She didn't have a tail. She did not shine. It simply floated in the void, almost indistinguishable from what it had been many months earlier, before its fiery rendezvous with the Sun. Imagine the disappointment of the scientists. They prepared the most powerful tools to film a space hurricane, but all they got was a light breeze. It wasn't just a discrepancy with the forecast. It wasn't a minor miscalculation. It was a complete, total, resounding failure of the predictive model. The picture painted by physics and the picture shown by reality turned out to be two completely different universes. Images from the Raves Observatory, the Very Large Telescope in Chile, and dozens of other instruments around the world showed the same thing. The show was cancelled. 4 billion tons of material that was supposed to be ejected into space simply vanished. They weren't there. And that was just the beginning. When researchers began to analyze these images in more detail, they discovered something even stranger. Something that turned this failure into a real, fundamental scientific mystery. The key piece of evidence in this case was a coma, a cloud of gas and dust directly surrounding the core of the object. It was supposed to serve as the main indicator of weight loss. If 3I Atlas had indeed ejected 13% of its matter, its coma should have swelled to incredible proportions, becoming dense and bright. That would be the most obvious consequence. And this is what scientists saw when they compared the Hubble image taken in July, long before the approach to the Sun, with the new images taken in November. They were practically identical. The coma has hardly changed. Yes, perhaps it became slightly brighter, but that was nothing compared to the enormous increase predicted by the model. There were no signs of catastrophic weight loss. The object passed through the scorching sun, where its surface heated up to hundreds of degrees and experienced inexplicable acceleration, but looked as if nothing unusual had happened. It was completely illogical. This violated all known rules of comet behavior. You cannot press the gas pedal in a car and not burn a single drop of gasoline. You cannot launch a rocket without an exhaust jet. And 3I Atlas did just that. He accelerated, but left no visible traces of the fuel he must have burned. It wasn't just a failed prediction, it was a blow to the very physical model on which this forecast was based. It became clear that there was no simple explanation here. We've encountered something that's not behaving as it should, and this posed two simple but very uncomfortable questions for the entire scientific world. And here we come to the very heart of this incredible mystery, to the central paradox that transforms this story from a simple scientific curiosity into a real intellectual thriller. Question number 1. If 3I Atlas really lost trillions of tons of matter to explain its acceleration, then where the hell did all that material go? We can't see him. No telescope, whether optical or infrared, can find this giant cloud of gas and dust. It simply vanished, evaporated without a trace, which is physically impossible. And question number 2, which is even more important. If the object did not actually lose this mass, which now seems most likely, then what unknown force was pushing it? What force caused it to accelerate if it was not the rocket effect from the evaporation of gas? Think about it. We have two indisputable, instrumentally recorded facts. Fact A, the object was accelerating. Fact B, the object did not lose mass in the amount necessary for this. Within the framework of physics as we know it, these two facts cannot exist simultaneously. They completely contradict each other. This is the paradox of the engine without exhaust. We can see that the car is going faster, but the exhaust pipe is completely clean. This means that either we are missing something, or there is a completely different type of engine under the hood of this car, one that we are not familiar with. From that point on, the investigation proceeded in two main directions. The first group of scientists attempted to save the natural comet hypothesis by suggesting that there had been an exhaust, but that it was somehow invisible. The second group began to ask a much bolder and more alarming question. What if it wasn't a comet at all? So the first attempt by scientists was to save the sinking theory. The idea was this: what if the substance was indeed being expelled, but for some reason we couldn't see it? Perhaps it consists not of dust and ordinary molecules, but of something more exotic. To verify this, the heavy artillery of global astronomy was brought into play. The Hubble telescope, known for its incredible clarity, the Very Large Telescope in Chile with its giant mirrors, and of course the main hope is the James Webb Space Telescope, whose ability to see in the infrared range allows it to detect even the coldest and most sparse clouds of gas, invisible to others. Their task was simple: to conduct the most thorough search of the space around 3I Atlas, and find at least some traces of the missing substance. They analysed the brightness of the object in different filters. They were looking for subtle changes in its spectrum that could reveal the chemical composition of the invisible trail. They combed through every pixel in the images they received. The verdict was unequivocal and disappointing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No hidden clouds, no anomalous spectral lines. Data from the world's most powerful telescopes not only failed to resolve the paradox, but made it even more acute. They set very strict upper limits on the amount of any invisible material around 3I Atlas. And this amount was absolutely catastrophically insufficient to explain the observed acceleration. It was like the police searching a room for a hidden elephant. They're not just unable to find it. They argue that there cannot be an elephant in this room in principle. All loopholes for natural explanations began to close one after another. This led scientists to put forward the most desperate and perhaps the most interesting hypothesis within the framework of comet theory. Okay, if there is almost no gas, but there is acceleration, could it be the gas itself? Could it be that we are dealing with some kind of super efficient fuel? This idea formed the basis of the latest attempt to save the comet model. The hypothesis was as follows. What if 3I Atlas consists not of ordinary water ice or frozen carbon monoxide, but of something much more volatile, such as solid hydrogen? Hydrogen is the lightest element in the universe. A hydrogen-fueled rocket is much more efficient than any other. Perhaps a comet consisting of hydrogen ice could also generate the necessary thrust by ejecting much less mass than usual. It was a beautiful and clever idea. She elegantly solved the problem of the missing mass. Such a hydrogen comet could indeed accelerate, leaving almost no visible traces. But this hypothesis had one fatal flaw. No one has ever seen a hydrogen comet. To remain solid, hydrogen needs a temperature just a few degrees above absolute zero. Even in the coldest corners of interstellar space, it would have evaporated long ago. It is practically impossible to create and preserve such an object naturally. It turned out that in order to save the natural explanation, scientists had to invent a completely new, never before observed, and theoretically almost impossible type of cosmic object. It was a scientific dead end. Checkmate. The standard model does not work, and attempts to save it raise even more questions than answers. And it was at this point, when all the simple explanations had been exhausted, that the investigation took a sharp turn and went down a completely different, much more disturbing and exciting path. The first act of our detective story was over, and he left us with a completely destroyed theory and an object that should not exist. So, the hydrogen comet hypothesis was the last lifeline for the natural theory. The last straw that scientists clung to in order to explain the paradox of the engine without exhaust. The idea was elegant, but there was no evidence to support it. It was pure speculation. But modern science has a tool designed specifically to test such bold ideas: the James Webb Space Telescope. This is not just another telescope. It is the most powerful infrared observatory ever built by humankind. His specialty is detecting thermal signatures. He can see the heat coming from the coldest and most distant objects in the universe. And most importantly for our investigation, it is incredibly sensitive to molecular gas, even gas as rarefied and cold as hydrogen. If there were even a sparse cloud of hydrogen around 3I Atlas, Webb would have seen it. He was the perfect lie detector to test this last hypothesis. And so, when the data from the telescope was received and analyzed, the scientific community got its answer. The answer was short, clear, and ruthless. No. No hydrogen. No abnormal cloud of invisible gas. Webb's spectrometers did not detect anything that could explain the enormous reactive thrust. This was the final nail in the coffin of the comet theory. Now it was official. The acceleration of 3I Atlas could not be explained by the evaporation of any substance from its surface, neither visible nor invisible. The theory was dead, and this scientific corpse left behind a vacuum. If gas did not propel this object, then what did? The failure of this last hypothesis forced scientists to stop looking for answers in the space around the object and finally focus all their attention on it itself. And when they did, the riddles came one after another. And the first oddity that caught my eye was the color of the object. It would seem, what difference does it make what color a stone flying through space is? But for astronomers, color is a crucial clue that can reveal the chemical composition and processes occurring on the surface. Comets are usually pretty boring to look at. Their surface, covered with complex organic matter and dust, has a greyish or reddish tint, and this shade remains more or less stable. But 3I Atlas was a chameleon. During the observation period, it managed to change its color 3 times. At first, it was reddish, as many comets are. Then, as it approached the sun, it became more neutral, grey. But after passing perihelion, in those very images where the tail was absent, scientists noticed something completely unexpected. A distinct bluish glow appeared around the object. It was very strange. The blue color in space is usually associated either with the scattering of light on very fine dust particles, or with the glow of certain molecules, such as carbon monoxide, excited by this solar radiation. But both of these versions did not fit well with other data. As we recall, there was almost no fine dust, and for the gas to glow, there had to be much more of it. Where this mysterious blue tint came from is still unclear. This was yet another anomaly in our investigation. Another detail that screamed that we were not dealing with an ordinary object. But this mystery was just the tip of the iceberg. A real shock awaited the researchers when they received data from the Chinese spacecraft. And this is where things get even more interesting. In early October 2025, when 3I Atlas flew relatively close to Mars, humanity had its own observer there, Chinese space probe Tianwen-1. The distance was about 30 million kilometers. It may seem enormous, but by cosmic standards, it is incredibly close. This made the Tianwen-1 observation one of the closest approaches of a spacecraft to an interstellar comet in history, and what this probe revealed became a real turning point in the investigation. Unlike ground-based telescopes, which could only see a blurry point of light, the Chinese spacecraft was able to make out some details. The image showed a visible tail, as well as a bright nucleus and the coma surrounding it. But here's where the surprise was hidden. Based on this data, scientists were able to determine the size and brightness of the object, and these figures turned out to be shocking. It turned out that 3I Atlas has a diameter of only about 5 6/10 kilometers, and that it's actually quite dull. Even though it was so close to the Sun, it showed very little surface activity, much less than we usually see in comets. These findings fully confirmed previous suspicions that the surface of 3I Atlas was not behaving as it should. It appears to be covered with some kind of material or structure that resists the evaporation typical of comets. And just as scientists were trying to make sense of this new, contradictory data, the James Webb Telescope provided the key piece of evidence in this case. And this piece of evidence finally moved 3I Atlas from the category of strange objects to the category of impossible. Let's figure out why the data from the Chinese probe has changed the rules of the game so dramatically. Up to this point, we had a simple dilemma. The object is accelerating, but there is no gas. Now, however, a second, equally important problem has arisen. The surface of this object hardly reacts to solar heat. It's like pointing a blowtorch at a piece of ice, and it doesn't melt. Something was protecting him. Chinese data showed that 3I Atlas is not just a dirty snowball. Its surface possesses some completely unique, anomalous properties. It turned out to be surprisingly dark and hardly reflected the sunlight at all. And most importantly, it was inert. Even at its closest approach to the Sun, when a normal comet would have turned into a violent geyser, the surface of 3I Atlas remained remarkably calm. The faint tail observed by Tianwen-1 was the result of very minor, superficial evaporation. This could not explain the powerful acceleration that had been recorded earlier. Now we had two paradoxes. The first is an exhaust-free engine. The second is armor against the Sun. The object somehow managed to accelerate for no apparent reason and withstand the heat of the Sun without any visible consequences. The picture was becoming increasingly strange. It no longer resembled the behavior of a natural object. This prompted scientists to ask a new, crucial question. What is this mysterious surface made of? What is this material that does not evaporate and is somehow connected with abnormal traction? The answer to this question, obtained thanks to the James Webb Telescope, was perhaps the most shocking discovery in this whole story. Let's pause for a moment and gather all the evidence together. We have an object that changes its trajectory for no apparent reason. We have an object that does not leave behind a predicted trail of gas and dust. We have an object that changes its color to a mysterious blue. And now, thanks to Chinese data, we know that its surface behaves like super strong armor that hardly reacts to the Sun's heat. Each new detail did not simplify, but only complicated the mystery. The natural explanation was falling apart at the seams. It was obvious that we were missing some key element, and this element was hidden in the chemical composition of the surface. After all, if it is a unique material, then its chemical fingerprint must be special. And here, the James Webb Telescope comes back into the picture. Its infrared spectrograph is essentially a highly sensitive chemical laboratory, capable of determining the molecules that make up a distant object by analyzing the light it reflects. Scientists directed Webb toward 3I Atlas and conducted a detailed analysis of its surface. They expected to see anything. Traces of unusual ice, rare organic molecules, something that could explain the anomalous strength. But what they discovered exceeded even their wildest expectations. The discovery was so unexpected that the initial report was double-checked several times before being published, because the data pointed to more than just strange material. They pointed to a complex, multi-layered structure that had never before been seen in natural objects. And here's what the data showed. Webb's spectrograph discovered that the surface of 3I Atlas is not just a mixture of ice and dust. It is a thick, durable outer shell ranging from 50 to 65 feet in thickness. But that's not the most important thing. That's where the real shock lies. This outer crust turned out to be completely different in chemical composition from what is inside the object. In other words, the external and internal parts did not match. It was unheard of. Imagine that you found a stone on the beach, split it open, and found that it was granite on the outside and pure gold on the inside. This does not happen with natural objects formed from a single material. This indicated that the object had a complex, differentiated structure. But how could such a crust have formed? Moreover, its chemical composition has not been altered by either normal space weathering or heating. It looked as if it had been created separately, and then put on the core. And this immediately posed a key question for scientists. Was this bark created naturally? Or did something strange happen to this object? Perhaps even something artificial? To try to answer this question, several research groups have published new papers. They suggested that 3I Atlas is a massive object weighing 33 billion tons that has been traveling through our galaxy for billions of years. During this time, he must have been exposed to cosmic radiation for an incredibly long time. And because of this, original icy materials such as carbon monoxide could slowly transform into more stable and refractory substances, such as carbon dioxide. This could explain why the surface and the interior are so different. The irradiated outer shell no longer resembles the original material from its native star system. And this explanation seemed quite logical, but as before, the devil was in the details. So, a completely scientific, natural hypothesis appeared on the table. Let's call it cosmic tan. The idea is that during billions of years of solitary flight through interstellar space, the surface of 3I Atlas has been subjected to intense bombardment by galactic cosmic rays. These high-energy particles could have triggered complex chemical reactions in the upper layer of the object, transforming loose, volatile ice into a solid, baked crust of more complex organic compounds. This explanation seemed appealing. First, it explained why the surface is so inert and does not evaporate under the sun's rays. It is simply covered with a protective shell. Secondly, it explained the difference in composition between the crust and the core. The core retained its original composition, while the crust is the result of billions of years of cosmic cooking. This model was logical, based on known physical processes, and, most importantly, it avoided any talk of something artificial. The scientific community eagerly embraced this idea. It seemed that the mystery was close to being solved. 3I Atlas is simply a very, very old comet with an incredibly thick layer of cosmic sunburn. But this relief was short-lived, because when chemists and astrophysicists began to carefully analyze the exact composition of this crust, provided by James Webb, they discovered that the cosmic sunburn hypothesis did not work. The chemicals found in the bark were not at all what should have resulted from natural irradiation. The picture fell apart again. This is where the detective story turns into a real chemical puzzle. Modeling of the space tanning process predicts that complex hydrocarbons, known as tholins, should form as a result of the irradiation of simple ice. These are sticky, dark organic molecules that give many objects in the solar system a reddish hue, and scientists expected to see their traces in the 3I Atlas spectrum. But they weren't there. Instead, the spectrum showed the presence of silicates, i.e., stony minerals and carbon compounds that were unusually resistant to heating. But the most important and shocking discovery was not what was there, but what was not there. There was practically no water ice in the bark. It was nonsense. By definition, a comet must consist mainly of ice, And here we had an object with bark that was as dry as a desert. This completely contradicted the idea that the crust was formed from the same substance as the core. But that wasn't all. Some scientists began to put forward even more radical ideas. They noticed that the chemical composition of this strange bark was very well suited to the idea of industrial coating, something we usually associate with technology rather than nature. The fact that the outer layer was so different from the core material only added weight to this incredible idea. And then a new, even stranger piece of evidence appeared in the case, which forced even the most hardened skeptics to take it seriously. This evidence emerged thanks to a reanalysis of the gases that were still present in small quantities around 3I Atlas. Among them, scientists had previously discovered traces of nickel and cyanide. At first, they didn't attach much importance to this. These elements may appear as a result of natural processes, but now, in light of the discovery of the anomalous crust, this data has been viewed from a completely different angle. And some researchers have discovered something remarkable. The ratio of these elements could have been the result of a chemical process involving a compound called nickel tetracarbonyl. But that was really strange. Why? Because nickel tetracarbonyl is a substance that is usually produced industrially on Earth. This is a key component in the MON process, which is used to obtain ultra-high purity nickel. It occurs extremely rarely in nature and in very unstable conditions. Finding hints of such a complex and specific industrial reagent in the cloud around an interstellar comet was extraordinary. This is of course not direct evidence. This is just one possible interpretation of the data. But in the context of everything else, the inexplicable acceleration, the absence of a tail, the super strong and dry bark, this small chemical detail sounded like a deafening siren. She opened the door to two enormous, incredible opportunities. Or the surface of 3I Atlas was altered by natural cosmic processes that lasted billions of years and were so complex and unique that we simply do not yet understand them. Or something unusual happened to this object, perhaps even unnatural. So, let's summarize the interim results of our investigation. We are at a point where all standard, conservative, and safe scientific explanations have failed. The model of a typical comet is dead. The hydrogen comet model proved unviable. The space-tan model does not correspond to the chemical composition. Every attempt to explain the 3I Atlas mystery within the framework of natural phenomena known to us led us into an even greater impasse, giving rise to new, even more complex questions. And in such a situation, the scientific method requires us to take a step that many scientists fear most. It begs the question, what if our most basic, most fundamental assumptions are wrong? What if we were wrong in classifying this object from the very beginning? What if it's not a natural object? This is the most dangerous question a scientist can ask. It leads into territory that mainstream science considers speculative and even pseudoscientific. But when the facts corner you, you have to consider even the most improbable versions. Let's conduct a thought experiment for a few minutes. Let's temporarily set aside our preconceptions and dare to assume that 3I Atlas is not a comet. That it is an artificially created object, technological artifact. Does it sound like science fiction? Absolutely. But let's see if this radical, crazy hypothesis can explain the set of completely real and inexplicable paradoxes that we have accumulated. Let's see if all these strange, incongruous details suddenly start to fit together into a single, logical, albeit completely unbelievable picture. Let us recall our main paradox, the paradox of the engine without exhaust. Within the natural model, it is unsolvable. The object accelerates, but does not lose mass. This violates the laws of physics. But what if we look at it from a technological perspective? What if this non-gravitational acceleration is not a chaotic release of gas from the surface, but the result of a controlled propulsion system? Are there technologies that allow an object to be accelerated without expelling reactive mass? Yes, they exist, at least in theory. The most famous example is the light sail, or solar sail, a giant, ultra-thin mirror that uses the pressure of sunlight to generate thrust. Such a sail does not burn fuel and leaves no exhaust behind. It creates pure, massless acceleration. If 3i Atlas were equipped with such technology, it would immediately and elegantly resolve our main paradox. There is acceleration, but no emission of substances. Everything fits together. We are not claiming that this is a light sail. Perhaps it is some other, more advanced propulsion technology that we cannot even imagine yet. But the very fact that this problem simply disappears in the technological paradigm gives pause for thought. What was an unsolvable paradox for nature becomes a logical and expected function for technology. And this is just the beginning. Let's apply the same approach to other anomalies. Now, let's recall problem number 2, the armor against the sun paradox. A mysterious, super strong crust that does not evaporate under the rays of the star and differs in composition from the core. Within the framework of the natural model, in order to explain its appearance, we had to invent a complex, unlikely, and ultimately ineffective process called cosmic tanning. But what if we look at this bark from an engineering perspective? Any object intended for long-distance travel in interstellar space must have protection. Protection against micrometeorites, harsh radiation, and temperature fluctuations. It needs exterior cladding, housing, armor. And if we assume that 3i Atlas is an artificial probe, then the presence of a strong, inert, specially created outer shell is not an anomaly. This is a necessary and logical engineering solution. And the fact that this crust differs in composition from the insides of the object also ceases to be a mystery. Of course it's different. After all, these are two different functional elements, the outer protective layer and the inner contents. Thus, our second paradox simply disappears. What was once a strange and inexplicable quirk of nature is becoming an obvious and necessary part of technology. The picture continues to unfold. The two greatest paradoxes that have stumped the entire field of astronomy find a simple and logical explanation within the framework of a single, albeit incredible, hypothesis. Let's continue with our list of anomalies. What about the strange chemical composition? Dry, waterless bark. Hints of industrial reagents such as nickel tetracarbonyl. In the natural model, this requires exotic chemistry in the object's home star system. Unique and rare conditions for formation. But what if it's not natural chemistry, but metallurgy? In the technological model, the strange composition ceases to be strange. It is simply a reflection of the materials that were selected by the creators. No water on the outer shell. This is logical, since ice is not the most durable building material. Presence of silicates and refractory carbon compounds. The ideal components for creating heat-resistant and durable armor. Hints of nickel compounds. Nickel is one of the key metals in the aerospace industry, used to create ultra-strong alloys. Again and again, we see the same thing. What is an inexplicable anomaly in the natural world becomes an expected norm in the world of technology. Each seemingly unrelated mystery, acceleration, crust, color, composition, suddenly weaves together into a single, consistent, and frighteningly logical picture. A picture of an ancient, silent, perhaps long abandoned, but artificially created object that makes its lonely flight through our solar system. This hypothesis, although it sounds like science fiction, has incredible explanatory power. It solves all the major paradoxes that have stumped scientists. But does that mean she's faithful? Not at all. Now we face the most difficult part of any investigation, subjecting this beautiful theory to ruthless criticism. And the first and most powerful blow to the artifact hypothesis is dealt by one of the fundamental principles of scientific thinking. It is known as Occam's razor. This principle states, entities should not be multiplied unnecessarily. Or, to put it more simply, of the two explanations, the one that is simpler is most likely the correct one. And at first glance, the hypothesis of an alien spacecraft is the most complicated, most improbable, and most wasteful explanation that one could possibly come up with. It requires us to accept the existence of an extraterrestrial civilization capable of interstellar travel, the fact that they sent a probe to us, and that this probe looks exactly like this. At the same time, the natural hypothesis requires us to admit only that we do not yet know everything about comets arriving from other star systems. What seems more likely to you? That we encountered a representative of another intelligence, or that we simply found a very, very strange space rock? The answer seems obvious. Any sensible scientist will say that we should prefer a natural explanation, even if it is not yet fully understood. And that is absolutely the right and correct approach. He protects science from unrestrained speculation. But let's pause for a second and ask a counter question. Is the natural explanation really simpler in this case? Let's weigh the complexity of both hypotheses on the scales. On one side, we have the artifact hypothesis. It requires one, but very big assumption: the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence. But if we accept this assumption, then all other anomalies, acceleration, crust, composition, can be explained simply and logically as consequences of this one assumption. Now let's look at the other side of the scale. It is based on a simple, natural hypothesis. What does it require of us? It requires us to accept that 3I Atlas is an object that, purely by chance, possesses a whole set of unique properties never seen before. It must have inexplicable acceleration. It must have an extremely strong crust, created by an unknown process. This bark must be dry, without water, and it must contain traces of exotic chemistry. This is not a single assumption. This is a whole list of independent anomalies, each of which is extremely unlikely on its own. And now the question of simplicity no longer seems so obvious. Which is simpler? One big assumption that explains everything, or 5 or 6 small, independent, and extremely unlikely assumptions that had to come together in one object by pure chance? Occam's razor is not just a matter of counting assumptions. This is an assessment of the overall plausibility of the theory. And in this case, paradoxical as it may seem, the technological hypothesis turns out to be surprisingly economical and simple. She elegantly cuts away all unnecessary entities, reducing all anomalies to a single cause. Okay, let's assume that the technological hypothesis is not that complicated. But then a second, even more powerful counter-argument arises, known as the Fermi paradox, or the Great Silence. It sounds simple. If the universe is teeming with intelligent life, where is everyone? Why do we not see any obvious, indisputable signs of its activity? Why is the sky silent? The galaxy is billions of years old. During this time, even a single civilization could have spread throughout the entire star system, leaving behind traces that would be impossible to miss. We should have seen giant astroengineering structures, stars behaving strangely, or at least heard their radio transmissions, but we see and hear nothing. This great silence is one of the strongest arguments in favor of the idea that we may be alone in the universe. And if that is the case, then the hypothesis that the first interstellar visitor we were able to see clearly turns out to be an artificial probe seems like an incredible, almost absurd coincidence. It's like buying one lottery ticket in your entire life and hitting the jackpot. Statistically, this is almost impossible. Therefore, skeptics say it is much more likely that we have simply found a very strange rock, and the Great Silence is proof that there are no probes in our galaxy. And this argument seems ironclad. But is that really the case? What if we are silent not because there is no one there, but because we are simply looking for the wrong thing in the wrong place? Let's imagine that you are a native on an isolated island who has never seen civilization, and you are looking for evidence of its existence. You sit on the shore and listen to the cries of seagulls, trying to make sense of them. But you hear nothing, and conclude that there is no one outside your island. Meanwhile, 10,000 meters above your head, a transatlantic liner flies silently overhead. You don't notice it because you don't know to look up, and you don't have the tools to see it. Perhaps the same thing is happening with the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. We traditionally search for it by listening to the radio. The SETI project has been listening to space for decades in the hope of picking up someone's radio signal. But what if advanced civilizations have long since abandoned radio as a primitive and inefficient means of communication? What if they communicate using lasers, neutrinos, or something we haven't discovered yet? In this case, our radio silence proves nothing. And this is where objects such as 3I Atlas and its predecessor Oumuamua introduce a completely new, revolutionary concept into this search. The concept of physical technosignature. The idea is to look for artifacts themselves rather than messages. Not screams in the jungle, but strange, unnatural tracks. Look for anomalous asteroids, not radio signals. Unusual comets. Objects that do not move as they should, do not look as they should, and are not made of what they should be made of. Perhaps the galaxy is not silent. Perhaps it is filled with these quiet, ancient probes explorers. And we have only just begun to lift our heads and rub our eyes to notice them. And so, against the backdrop of this incredible debate, when every new piece of information is worth its weight in gold, another strange event occurs, which only adds fuel to the fire of theories and suspicions. And it's connected to NASA. The American Space Agency has a spacecraft called the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, or MRO, operating in Mars's orbit. It is one of the most powerful orbital telescopes we have outside Earth, equipped with an incredibly high-resolution camera. And when 3I Atlas flew past Mars, this spacecraft reportedly took pictures of it. These images were to be the clearest and most detailed images of an interstellar visitor ever obtained by humankind. They could confirm or disprove many theories, to show whether there are any structures on the surface, what shape they are, and so on. The entire scientific community and space enthusiasts alike held their breath in anticipation of the publication of these images. But week after week went by, and there were still no photos. NASA remained silent. The silence became more and more deafening. It sparked a wave of rumors, speculation, and even conspiracy theories. Why doesn't the agency show this key data? What did they see there that they don't want to show the public? The official explanations were vague. Technical difficulties, the need for additional calibration, heavy traffic on communication channels. But for many, this sounded unconvincing. This delay, whether intentional or accidental, only reinforced the feeling that there was something extraordinary about this object. The mystery surrounding 3I Atlas grew thicker, going beyond the realm of purely scientific discussion. And here, roughly halfway through our lengthy investigation, we reach the main turning point. Let's pause and look at the big picture, because right now all the scattered threads of the plot are coming together. On one side of the scale, we have the natural hypothesis. To believe in it, we must accept that an object was accidentally formed in the universe that is unique in 5 independent parameters. It must have inexplicable non-gravitational acceleration. It should lose virtually no mass under the influence of the sun. It must have an extremely durable outer shell. This crust must differ radically from the core in its chemical composition. And finally, its faint gas trail should contain hints of complex industrial chemistry. 5 incredible anomalies in one body. Is that possible? Yes, theoretically possible. In an infinite universe, even more unlikely coincidences can occur. But this makes the hypothesis of natural origin extremely difficult and unlikely. Now let's look at the other side of the scale. It is based on an artificial hypothesis. It requires us to make just one, but enormous assumption, that somewhere out there in the galaxy, another technological civilization exists or has existed. But as soon as we accept this hypothesis, all 5 anomalies instantly cease to be anomalies. They become logical, expected, and even necessary engineering solutions. Acceleration is the engine. The bark is armor. The difference in composition is a functional division, and strange chemistry is just the materials it's made of. We are faced with a classic detective story dilemma. Either it was a series of incredible, fantastical coincidences, or someone was behind it all, and for the first time in the history of modern science, the second side of the scales, the side with the unbelievable hypothesis, ceased to be weightless. She began to outweigh him. This moment became a watershed. The debate over the nature of 3I Atlas is no longer just a debate about astronomy. He has reached a whole new level, because now the main question is not simply, what is this object? The main question is much deeper. What should we do with all this? As a science, as a species, as a civilization, how should we respond to evidence that so starkly contradicts our familiar worldview? Should we dismiss them as anomalies and wait for more conclusive evidence, risking missing out on what could be the most important discovery in history? Or should we devote all our energies to exploring this possibility at the risk of becoming embroiled in fruitless speculation and undermining confidence in science? The 3I Atlas puzzle has evolved from a physical conundrum into a philosophical and methodological problem. She exposed the deepest divisions within the scientific community itself about what science is, what its boundaries are, and how bold it has the right to be. We have gone through all stages of the investigation together. We examined the evidence. We weighed the arguments. We saw standard theories collapse. The second act of our detective story is coming to an end. We have exhausted the analysis of the object itself. And now, in the third and final act, we will move on to analysing what this incredible story means for all of us. We will conduct a kind of trial of the method and try to pass judgment not on the object, but on our own way of understanding the universe. But before we move on to philosophy, let's add the final cherry on top of this paradoxical cake to our case. And it is related to the flight trajectory of 3I Atlas itself. At first glance, she was just a typical exaggeration, as befits an interstellar guest. But when analysts began to study it more closely, they noticed something strange. The object moved along a course that took it surprisingly close to several planets in our solar system, including Mars, which allowed the Chinese probe to make its observations. But at the same time, its trajectory somehow completely avoided a close approach to Earth. Statistically, it looked like a small but intriguing anomaly. It's like throwing a stone into a room, and it bounces off several walls, flying a centimeter away from an expensive vase, but not touching it. Perhaps it's just a coincidence, and most likely, that's exactly what it is. But in the context of all the other oddities, this detail could not fail to attract attention. Some researchers, especially proponents of the radical hypothesis, saw this as a hint that the trajectory might not have been entirely random. Could this have been a deliberate gravitational maneuver to study several planets while avoiding detection or contact with the most densely populated one? This is, of course, pure speculation. There is no direct evidence of this, but this small detail became the final touch to the portrait of this incredibly mysterious object, transforming it from a simple strange rock into something that behaves almost intelligently. And now, armed with this complete set of evidence, we are ready to move on to our final act. So, if we seriously consider the artificial hypothesis, what kind of artifact could it be? Opinions were divided here as well. The first, more conservative version is known as the space debris hypothesis. Perhaps 3I Atlas is not an active ship, but simply a remnant of a long-lost civilization. A piece of debris, a broken engine, an abandoned station drifting aimlessly through space for billions of years. This idea is appealing because of its simplicity. She explains why the object is silent and does not emit any signals. It is simply dead. It may also explain why it looks like an asteroid or comet. Over billions of years, it may have become covered in a layer of cosmic dust that masks its true nature. This version seems more plausible than the idea of an active reconnaissance ship. But she has one serious problem, and that problem is non-gravitational acceleration. If it is just a dead, passive fragment, it should not accelerate. It must move strictly according to the laws of gravity. Anomalous drag, however weak it may be, is inconsistent with the idea of simple space debris. This acceleration suggests that some kind of active process is still taking place on board the object. And that brings us to another, much more exciting, though less likely hypothesis. This alternative version states that 3I Atlas is not junk, but a working, functional interstellar probe, an analogue of our Voyagers or Pioneers, only created by someone else and possibly much more sophisticated. This hypothesis explains the key anomalies much better. Active, non-gravitational acceleration. It's simply the workings of its propulsion system, possibly a light sail that uses sunlight to correct its course. Super strong inert crust. This is its protective covering. A strange trajectory avoiding Earth. This is his flight program, designed to collect data with minimal risk of detection. This version elegantly ties up all the loose ends, but it immediately raises a whole host of new, even more complex questions. If it is an active scout, what are its objectives? Why is he silent and not trying to make contact? Is it an autonomous robot, or does it have a crew on board? And the main question, if he is alone, then there must be others somewhere. This hypothesis, although the most exciting, takes us to the very edge of modern scientific knowledge, into a realm where we have no data, only pure speculation. It is both frightening and attractive at the same time, and that is precisely why most scientists prefer to remain on firmer ground for now, even if that ground is cracking beneath their feet due to unsolvable paradoxes. So, the second act of our investigation is complete. And where did we end up? We started with the simple paradox of the engine without exhaust. But as we delved deeper into the details, one mystery led to another. The absence of a tail led us to an anomalous surface. An abnormal surface leads to a strange chemical composition. And the strange composition hints at industrial chemistry. We saw how the standard Comet model collapsed. We saw how all attempts to save it with exotic hypotheses failed. And we saw how, from the ashes of these failures, an incredible but frighteningly logical technological hypothesis arose. We weighed it on the scales of Occam's razor and the Fermi paradox, and saw that it was not so easy to dismiss. We have analysed all the physical evidence we have to date, and the verdict of the second part of our investigation is this. The natural model of the origin of 3I Atlas requires us to believe in a series of improbable and unique coincidences. The technological model, for all its fantastical nature, remains on the table as the only theory that provides a simple and elegant explanation for all observable facts. But now, as we have already said, the main question is not what is it? The main question is, what should we do with this knowledge? And to try to answer it, we move on to the final third act. Let's return from hypotheses to pure physics for a moment. If we assume that some kind of propulsion system or other systems are operating on board 3I Atlas, then they must consume energy. Moreover, judging by the mass of the object, which is 33 billion tons, a colossal amount of energy is required. Where could it come from? The first and most obvious source is a star, namely our Sun. The light sail technology we discussed uses photon energy, but for the sail to work effectively, it needs to be very large, and it would have to reflect light, making the object very bright. And 3I Atlas, as we remember from Chinese data, on the contrary, was rather dim and dark. The second option is nuclear energy. There could be a fission or fusion reactor on board, but a working reactor must generate an enormous amount of heat. And this heat should have been radiated into space in the form of infrared radiation. And the James Webb Telescope, as we remember, did not see anything like that. The object was cold. No signs of a powerful internal energy source were found. This is another serious problem for the technological hypothesis. We are once again faced with a paradox. There is acceleration, but no visible signs of a working engine. No exhaust, no heat trail. This forces proponents of this hypothesis to resort to even greater contortions in their assumptions. And here we enter the most uncertain territory, the realm of pure speculation. How can the absence of an energy signature be explained? The only answer left for supporters of the artifact hypothesis is this. we are dealing with very advanced technologies that we are not yet able to understand or detect. Perhaps this is some form of stealth technology that allows the heat signature to be concealed. Or is it an engine that operates on physical principles unknown to us, such as interaction with dark matter or vacuum? The problem with such explanations is that they are essentially unscientific. This is a classic argument from ignorance. We don't know how it works, so it must be advanced technology. That way, you can explain anything. Once we embark on this path, we leave the realm of fact-based science and enter the realm of faith. And this is precisely what scientists fear and avoid most. This point clearly demonstrates the weakness of the technological hypothesis. It explains well what we see, acceleration, crust, but it cannot explain at all what we do not see, energy trail. This leads many researchers to believe that, despite all the oddities, we are still dealing with some kind of exotic but natural phenomenon. Because even the worst natural explanation for them is better than an explanation that requires belief in invisible and undetectable technologies. But was 3i Atlas really that unique? Turns out no. And this is another crucial turning point in our business. In 2017, several years before the appearance of Atlas, the first interstellar object ever discovered flew through the solar system. It was given the Hawaiian name Oumuamua, which means messenger from afar. And the story of Oumuamua is eerily similar to the story of Atlas. It was a small, dark, reddish object. It had an elongated cigar-like shape, and most importantly, it also demonstrated a clear non-gravitational acceleration, which scientists have never been able to explain convincingly. At that time, most researchers attributed this to measurement errors or some unknown cometary phenomenon. Only Avi Loeb dared to suggest that Oumuamua could be an artificial object, such as a light sail. Then they laughed at him. But now, after the appearance of 3i Atlas, which showed the same key symptom, acceleration without a tail, scientists were forced to look at Oumuamua in a completely different light. Reanalysis of the data in light of the new discoveries showed that both objects may belong to the same class of mysterious interstellar wanderers. And that completely changes the situation. Why is this so important? Because it deals a crushing blow to the skeptic's main argument, the argument about uniqueness. It's one thing to find a single strange stone. This can be attributed to chance, fluctuation, or the survivor bias. But finding two such objects in just a few years of observation is a completely different story. That's already statistics. This suggests that such objects may not be rare exceptions, but rather a fairly common phenomenon in our galaxy. And if that is the case, then the hypothesis of natural origin becomes even more tenuous. We will have to accept that there is a whole class of impossible comets in the universe that do not behave as they should. On the other hand, the artifact hypothesis becomes much more likely. If one civilization is capable of sending research probes across the galaxy, why shouldn't others do the same? In this case, we should expect space to be literally flooded with such devices. And the fact that, as soon as we built telescopes powerful enough to detect them, we immediately began to find them, fits perfectly into this picture. The appearance of 3i Atlas after Oumuamua transformed this story from one about a single strange object into one about possible first contact with a whole new class of phenomena. And this prompted the scientific community to respond. And this reaction was very telling. It exposed a deep divide that exists in modern science. On the one hand, the majority of academic scientists greeted both the Oumuamua story and 3i Atlas with enormous skepticism. For them, these were simply interesting but unsolved astronomical puzzles. Any talk of artificial origins was perceived as unacceptable sensationalism, harmful to the reputation of science. Most scientific journals refused to publish articles on this topic. Presentations at conferences were often met with ridicule. It was a defensive reaction by the system, which is trying to maintain its stability and not succumb to what it considers to be unfounded speculation. On the other hand, a small but very active group of researchers has emerged who claim that this approach is not scientific rigor, but cowardice and dogmatism. They argue that the task of science is precisely to investigate anomalies, not to sweep them under the rug. That refusing even to discuss the artifact hypothesis in the face of such powerful circumstantial evidence is a betrayal of the very spirit of scientific inquiry. This conflict spilled over into newspapers, television shows, and the internet, turning from an academic dispute into a full-blown culture war. And this war of ideas became no less important a part of this story than the mysterious object itself. So the second act of our investigation is complete. And where did we end up? We started with the simple paradox of the engine without exhaust. But as we delved deeper into the details, one mystery led to another. The absence of a tail led us to an anomalous surface. An abnormal surface leads to a strange chemical composition, and the strange composition hints at industrial chemistry. We saw how the standard Comet model collapsed. We saw how all attempts to save it with exotic hypotheses failed. And we saw how, from the ashes of these failures, an incredible but frighteningly logical technological hypothesis arose. We weighed it on the scales of Occam's razor and the Fermi paradox, and saw that it was not so easy to dismiss. We have analysed all the physical evidence we have to date, and the verdict of the second part of our investigation is this. The natural model of the origin of 3I Atlas requires us to believe in a series of improbable and unique coincidences. The technological model, for all its fantastical nature, remains on the table as the only theory that provides a simple and elegant explanation for all observable facts. But now, as we have already said, the main question is not what is it? The main question is, what should we do with this knowledge? And to try to answer it, we move on to the final, third act. So, we're in the final. We have come a long way, from the first anomalous acceleration to hints of industrial chemistry. We saw theories collapse and hypotheses emerge from the ashes that yesterday seemed like pure fantasy. And now it is becoming clear that the 3I Atlas mystery is no longer just a problem for astronomy. It's much more than that. This is a challenge to our entire system of knowledge. This is the mirror in which science itself is reflected. And she doesn't really like what she sees there, because she sees her limitations, her prejudices, her fear of the unknown. The story of 3I Atlas is not a story about a distant cold stone. This is our story, about how we, as humans, react to the appearance of something that does not fit into our comfortable and understandable picture of the world. It is a drama of ideas, a clash between conservatism and boldness, skepticism and openness to new things. And now, in this final act, we will not judge 3I Atlas. We will judge the scientific method itself and try to understand whether it is ready to encounter the real, fundamental mystery. We are not just observing an object. We are witnessing a crisis of the scientific method live on air. And a great deal depends on how the scientific community emerges from this crisis. Perhaps even our future as a species. What exactly is this crisis? The scientific method is the most powerful tool we have for understanding reality, and it is built on several unshakable pillars. The first is repeatability. The experiment must be reproducible. The second is verifiability. Any theory must make predictions that can be tested. And the third is skepticism. We must question everything, especially the boldest and most beautiful ideas. This system works perfectly when we are dealing with normal, recurring phenomena. But what happens when we encounter something completely unique? 3I Atlas is not a laboratory experiment. This is a unique, one-time event. He flew in and is flying away forever. We cannot ask him to fly in again to double-check the data. We cannot conduct a controlled experiment with him. We have only one set of observations, and they are incomplete and noisy. And how should the scientific method work in such a situation? How can we distinguish a real anomaly from an observation error? How can a hypothesis be tested if it cannot be definitively confirmed or refuted? This is a fundamental challenge for science based on empirical evidence. And it was precisely this challenge that divided the scientific community into two large camps. On the defenders and prosecutors of the traditional approach, and now we will hear arguments from both sides. Let's start with the defense position, or the skeptics' camp. Their position is very simple, logical, and based on centuries of scientific experience. It is formulated in the famous phrase by astronomer Carl Sagan: "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence," and the hypothesis that 3I Atlas is an artificial artifact is perhaps the most extraordinary statement that can be made in science. And what evidence do we have? We have no clear images, no radio signals, no samples of the substance. We only have a chain of circumstantial evidence and anomalies, each of which, theoretically, could have a natural explanation that is unknown to us. Skeptics say, yes, the object is strange. Yes, our current models do not explain it. But that's no reason to jump to conclusions about aliens. This is a reason to work harder, to create new, more complex models of natural phenomena. The history of science is full of such examples. Once upon a time, we couldn't explain Mercury's motion using Newton's laws. But we didn't say that Mercury was an alien spaceship. We waited, and eventually Einstein's general theory of relativity appeared, which explained everything. This conservative, cautious approach is the immune system of science. He protects her from the viruses of pseudoscience, speculation, and premature sensationalism. And from this point of view, any talk about the artificiality of 3I Atlas before obtaining ironclad direct evidence is not science, but harmful chatter. But this seemingly flawless position also has a downside, a dark side. Now let's hear the arguments of the prosecution, or the innovators' camp. They say the following: Sagan's principle is a great principle, but what exactly constitutes extraordinary evidence? If we wait for a flying saucer to land in front of us, we may wait forever. Perhaps the only evidence we will ever be able to obtain is precisely this kind of circumstantial evidence, anomalies in the data that we are observing. Refusal to seriously consider the artifact hypothesis, in their opinion, is not scientific rigor, but dogmatism. It is a fear of a topic that is considered indecent in academic circles. Fear of damaging one's reputation. Innovators remind us that all great scientific revolutions began with anomalies that did not fit into the existing worldview. And there were always conservatives who said that this could not be, because it could never be. If Galileo had listened to such skeptics, we would still believe that the sun revolves around the Earth. The innovator's position is as follows. We are not claiming that 3I Atlas is an alien spacecraft. We argue that this hypothesis should be taken seriously, on a par with others. It needs to be checked, telescope time needs to be allocated to it, and scientific articles need to be written about it. Burying our heads in the sand and pretending that we are dealing with just a strange comet is not a scientific approach, but intellectual cowardice. And this debate about where the line between healthy skepticism and blind dogmatism lies is the main thrust of this whole story. And at the heart of this dispute lies the fundamental question of the cost of error. Let's weigh the risks once again, based on our entire investigation. What is the cost of an error if we make a mistake in one direction or another? Scenario 1. We were mistaken, and 3I Atlas is indeed a natural object. If we get too carried away with an artificial hypothesis, we risk looking ridiculous. Science will suffer reputational damage and be accused of sensationalism. It's unpleasant, but not fatal. Science has been wrong many times, but it has always been able to admit its mistakes and move on. Now, scenario 2, we were mistaken, and 3 Atlas is indeed an artificial artifact, and we dismissed it. We called it a strange comet and forgot about it. In this case, the cost of an error is disproportionately higher. We risk missing out on the most important discovery in human history. We risk missing the first contact simply because it did not meet our expectations. The asymmetry of risks here is enormous. In one case, we risk our reputation. In the other, we miss out on what may be our only chance to learn, that we are not alone in the universe. And this realization leads many scientists to say that even if the chance that it is an artifact is only 1%, we are obliged to investigate this possibility with the utmost seriousness, because the potential reward is too great and the price of inaction could be too high. Let's go over the entire chain of evidence one last time before reaching a verdict, but not as separate facts, but as a single narrative. It all starts with abnormal acceleration. That's a fact. Attempting to explain it with a rocket effect leads to a prediction of enormous mass loss. This prediction fails. That is also a fact. There is no tail or cloud of gas. Detailed searches for the invisible gas using the world's best telescopes have also been unsuccessful. Fact. Next, we look at the object itself. Its surface is inert and does not react to the sun. It is covered with a tough bark, which differs in composition from the core, and there are hints of industrial chemistry in its trace environment. These are also facts based on data. Finally, this is the second such facility in several years with similar symptoms. Fact. When you look at each of these facts separately, you can always find some far-fetched, improbable, but still possible natural explanation for it. But when you see them all together, strung together in a chain, the picture changes. The probability that all these independent anomalies converged in one object by pure chance becomes vanishingly small. This is precisely what makes even the most convinced skeptics feel uncomfortable. The chain of circumstantial evidence turns out to be surprisingly strong. So, what is the official verdict today? What does the scientific consensus say? It says something very cautious and very honest. It says, we don't know. Today, the official status of 3I Atlas is an interstellar object with observable but as yet unexplained anomalous properties. Science has essentially taken a pause. It has admitted defeat. It has honestly said that none of the existing models can satisfactorily explain the entire set of observed facts. And this is perhaps the most correct and scientific approach that can be taken in such a situation. Instead of hastily accepting either a far-fetched natural hypothesis or an unproven artificial one, the scientific community has decided to remain in a state of uncertainty. This is an honest, but of course, very unsatisfactory answer for all of us. We want to know. We want certainty, but science cannot always provide it. And this verdict, we don't know, is not the end of the story. It is the beginning. It is an invitation to new research, to the creation of new telescopes, to the development of new theories, and it is an expectation of new data. And this wait will not be passive. What next? First, astronomers will continue to monitor 3I Atlas. It is flying away and becoming dimmer every day, but the most powerful telescopes can still see it. Perhaps we will be able to notice some new changes in its behavior that will provide a key to solving the mystery. Second, the development of new observatories, such as the Vera Rubin telescope, which will scan the entire sky every night, is in full swing. This will greatly increase our chances of finding new interstellar visitors. And if Oumuamua and Atlas are not a coincidence but part of a pattern, then we may discover dozens of such objects in the coming years. This will allow us to conduct a statistical analysis of their properties. And thirdly, space mission projects are being developed that are capable of catching up with such objects at ultra-high speeds. Interceptor missions that will be able to fly up to the next Atlas, take close-up pictures, and possibly even take a sample of the substance. It will be expensive, it will be incredibly difficult, but this may be the only way to get a definitive answer. The race for the truth is not over yet. It is just beginning, and the stakes in this race are higher than ever. At the end of this long journey, we return to where we started. The mystery of 3I Atlas is a mirror. And during our investigation, we realized that it reflects more than just a strange object. It reflects ourselves, our knowledge and our ignorance, our courage and our fears, our willingness to accept uncomfortable truths, and our desire to remain within the confines of our familiar worldview. We seek answers in the depths of space, but this story shows that the main barriers, the main obstacles to knowledge, are not there, but here within us. In our methods, which are not always ready to encounter the unique. In our prejudices, which make us dismiss indecent topics. In our courage, or lack thereof, to ask the most important and most uncomfortable questions. Perhaps the universe is much more complex, much more surprising, and much stranger than our most daring models allow. And perhaps the main purpose of facilities such as 3i Atlas is not to give us ready-made answers, but to teach us humility, to remind us that we are still children on the shore of a boundless ocean of the unknown. Let's take one last look at these images, at this small, blurry dot of light that has caused such a stir. It is flying away. With every second, it moves thousands of kilometers further away from us. It is leaving our solar system forever and returning to the icy void of interstellar space, taking its secrets with it. All we see is a dot, but now, after everything we have learned, we understand how much is hidden behind it. So much drama, so many unanswered questions, scientific debates, broken theories, and hopes born. It is no longer just a comet. It is a symbol of a great mystery, a symbol of how much we still don't know about the universe we live in. And the next time you look up at the night sky full of stars, remember this story. Remember that somewhere out there, among those billions of lights, right now, there may be other silent travelers like it. Messengers whose mystery we have yet to unravel. At the very beginning, we asked the main question: what happened to 3i Atlas, and where did the trillions of tons of its matter disappear to? And now, at the end of our investigation, we are ready to give the most honest and correct answer. We don't know. And the fact that we, with all our technology and knowledge, can simply and honestly say we don't know is perhaps the most important conclusion of this whole story. Because science is not a book of ready-made answers. It is a process of endless questioning. It is the art of living in a state of uncertainty, without succumbing to the temptation of simple and convenient explanations. The mystery of 3i Atlas remains unsolved, and that's a good thing, because it is precisely these unsolved mysteries that drive us forward. They make us think. They make us build new telescopes. They make us dream. They make us look at the stars with completely different eyes, with a new sense of wonder and awe. And it is important to remember, 3i Atlas is not an isolated anomaly. It arrived following its equally mysterious predecessor, Oumuamua. Together they form a pattern. They hint that we may be on the cusp of a new era in astronomy, an era when the study of such interstellar messengers will become a separate, crucial field of science. An era when we will move from passively listening to space to actively searching for physical technosignatures. Perhaps in 10, 20, or 50 years, we will find dozens of such objects. We will learn to classify them. We will be able to distinguish truly strange natural phenomena from something else. Perhaps one of them will give us the final answer. For now, we are left with what we have. Two incredibly strange visitors who came to us, turned our ideas of normal upside down, and flew away, leaving behind a trail of questions, debates, and guesses. What do you think? We have presented you with all the evidence that science has to offer today. We have shown you all the arguments for and against each version. You have seen how shaky the natural explanations are and how logical, yet incredible, the artificial hypothesis seems. Now you are the jury in this great cosmic trial. What is your verdict? Is 3i Atlas just the strangest comet we have ever seen? Or is it something more? An ancient probe, space debris, or something we cannot even imagine yet? Share your opinion in the comments. We are genuinely interested in hearing which hypothesis seems most convincing to you after seeing all the evidence. We are not giving you a ready-made answer. We are giving you all the facts. The decision is yours. This story is about how one small, distant point of light challenged our most fundamental ideas about the universe and our place in it. It showed us that space is still full of mysteries, and that the most incredible discoveries may not await us in distant galaxies, but right here in our own solar home. It doesn't matter whether we find the final answer to the Three-Eye Atlas mystery tomorrow or 100 years from now. What matters is that we never stop looking for it. Because it is this desire to look beyond the horizon, ask uncomfortable questions, and challenge established dogmas that makes us human. Thank you for joining us on this long and difficult journey of investigation. Keep asking questions. Keep looking at the stars.